Greetings, Professor and fellow students. My name is Patrick Dempsey, and I'm going to briefly discuss the Starbucks case. So we'll get right on into it. Slide 2. So what's really the problem in this case? The problem is that Starbucks is seeing some disturbing evidence that customer satisfaction is decreasing. As a result of this, a proposal has come up, and that proposal is to invest $40 million to add additional labor to existing stores, and the goal is really to decrease the back of the line to the cup in hand time to 3 minutes or less to improve satisfaction. It's important to conduct a thorough analysis of this because there is internal resistance currently. The CFO is uncertain how adding the additional labor will impact the bottom line. And there's also been some myopia lately at Starbucks. They've been slow to respond to customer trends. They're focusing a lot on growth, but there's some evidence that there's some things going on in the customer base that they clearly need to address. Well, moving on to the next slide, what's brewing in the customer base? What's changing? Well, what's changing is because of tremendous growth that Starbucks has undergone, they're really left now with two distinctive customer segments. We have new customers, which I like to call commuters, and then we have established customers, which essentially could be called coffee connoisseurs. Now, these commuters, they interact with the Starbucks brand differently, they consume Starbucks differently, and as you can see, what's listed on this slide is just some of the key differences. They're also the new customers are actually a bigger percent of the customer base, and these new customers, they're really not as congruent with the Starbucks value proposition, and that original value proposition focused on coffee, intimacy, and atmosphere. These new consumers are really they may value good products, but they're going to value quick service. So we can clearly see two distinct customer segments, and that's a very important difference to note going forward when we're analyzing the alternatives for this case. If you go to the next slide, what else is brewing? We could just see the overview of the competitive analysis of the firm. Some important things to note here. The Starbucks is not quite as well positioned as it used to be. Dunkin' Donuts has increased product offerings, and in addition to that, the growth of Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks has led them to kind of be going after the same customers now. That wasn't true before. And another important thing to realize is that there's a lot of opportunities still for Starbucks. They can retain new acquisitions, they can grow existing store sales, and they can enter new markets. And I would argue that it's really going to be important for them to try to shore up some of the weaknesses and really leverage the strengths to take advantage of some of these opportunities. And in order to take advantage of these opportunities, they're going to need satisfied customers, and they're going to need to continually focus on growing the customer base and keeping the customers that they currently have. So moving on to the next slide, just two pictures here. So what's basically happening, the way that I see it, is that there's an increased, due to the increased complexity of the drinks and the customization that's going on and the two different segments, there's a huge amount of pressure on baristas right now. They have to fulfill all these complex and customized orders and at the same time deliver the personalized service that Starbucks promises. And from that bottom picture there, I want to make it clear that the experience is deteriorating for customers, and it's really deteriorating for both customer segments when you think about it. The new customers that value convenience don't want to stand around and wait in line. They value the quick service, so they may be dissatisfied because they're not getting that. And the established customers, which are the people sitting down in that picture, they don't want the ambiance of the store to be ruined by these people standing in line and being on their cell phones and talking on their cell phones. They're looking for a quiet place to relax. So you could argue that what's happened at Starbucks, these long lines, it's really impacting both customer segments. Moving on to the next slide, what can Starbucks do? I mean, it's pretty simple. They can either implement or not implement, the the $40 million expenditure to put the additional labor in. Pros of implementing, this can relieve pressure on the baristas. It could increase the satisfaction, which would change consumer behavior and lead to increased spending, hopefully. And it could also help alleviate some of the experience deterioration that we just talked about with both segments. The cons is that it's going to increase one of the biggest expenses for the firms. It's not sure how it's going to be tied to the bottom line, and it's going to set unrealistic expectations. If we reduce time to 3 minutes, in 6 months people might be demanding 2.5 minutes, and their spending may revert to less satisfied levels. And then additionally, part-time labor, they may not get as much exposure and be able to deliver as personalized a service. For not implementing, the pros really are is it contains the labor expense, obviously, and then Starbucks would have to focus on another area such as promotions or convenience. The cons of not implementing is there's really limited options when considering all Starbucks has done thus far to try to improve service processes, and also customer disenchantment is really the big one. If this is indeed something that customers are demanding, a reduction in wait times, then not implementing could make customers go elsewhere or, decrease their spending when they're coming to Starbucks. Moving on to the next slide, to analyze the two alternatives, I just chose two simple decision criteria. I looked at feasibility and financial viability. So what it comes down to with feasibility is that the labor addition really has a unique ability, like I said before, or as is evident from the situation analysis. The labor addition can satisfy new customers, the established customers, and partners. The status quo doesn't have this ability. What Starbucks has focused on thus far, or the other things that it could focus on, such as promotional opportunities or increasing convenience, really don't address the core problem, and they don't align well with the preferences of all of these groups: new customers, established customers, and partners. So I would say that the labor addition is the more feasible alternative. When you think about implementation, it's going to be a rather big implementation. Obviously, with the status quo, there's no implementation. But I think Starbucks could easily implement the additional labor because they have a commitment really to training excellence with their partners, and they also have a commitment to improving process efficiency. So I think they could get these people in there fairly easily, train them, get them up to speed, and solve this problem. So that's the analysis of the first decision criteria. The second decision criteria is financial viability. So if you go to the next slide, this is really the meat and potatoes of the analysis. So, from customer lifetime value, there's more on that in the case, but really the key is looking at additional revenue by category increase. And for this iteration of the analysis that's on here, I looked at, well, what would the impact be if we focused on making satisfied customers highly satisfied by reducing the wait time. And I think this is probably the most probable focus and change, making customers highly satisfied from satisfied. And you can see per year, $172 more a highly satisfied customer is spending than a satisfied customer. So, satisfaction is clearly tied to profitability. The break-even analysis, the second chart on there, Starbucks, really, I'll just, for time, combine the second and the third there. Starbucks just needs to convert 66 customers from satisfied to highly satisfied, right, from a customer baseline of 3,467 customers per store per year to, make this pay off. And I think that's entirely doable, and it's therefore 100% financially viable. So moving on, the last slide, they should green light this. It's a no-brainer. They should add this labor to the existing stores. It could increase profitability. It's going to increase customer satisfaction, and it's the best alternative here that we've seen today. So I thank you for your time. Have a nice day.